Here are the principles of a successful worldwide leaderless anarchist collective with millions of members that helps people to deal with substance misuse issues and is defined by anonymity, so as you will see when you read it, I am forbidden to declare whether I belong to or not. They are known as the 12 traditions. I believe that this social code has much in it that we can replicate and benefit from. 1. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon our unity. This first edict establishes an important spiritual principle. Our power is in unity. We must always prioritise our collective well-being above individual advantage. If you look at the way the world is currently governed, it runs almost diametrically averse to this mandate. Individual success and happiness is prioritised through the prevailing consumer mentality and the dominant elitist capitalist system. These shady secret trade deals that Chomsky told us about are like white phosphorus-tipped arrows in the heart of this principle. Fuck the world, fuck community, show me the money. So when we're holding a group meeting on how our community should be managed, no individual would have the right to do anything that fucks on a micro level with the group or on a macro level with the planet. On a lighter note, I was once in the back of a limo with Tom Cruise, oh yeah, I've lived baby, and he was talking to me about acting and he told me how he approached the character of Jerry Maguire who said the famous "show me the money" line. His kids were opposite us and we were trapped in a luxurious carriage of beige leather. He said the comedy of Jerry came from his frustrated enthusiasm, a man who believed powerfully in what he was doing, but was constantly thwarted. "Help me, help you," said Tom, all passionately. In this moment, I thought, wow, I'm in a car with Tom Cruise, and he's doing bits from his films. How cool! I looked around the car to see if I could get a reciprocal bit of eye contact from someone, you know, like, hey guys, this is mad, he's doing that thing. But everyone else in the car was either Tom Cruise or Tom Cruise's kids, so they weren't as impressed by it. In fact, they didn't notice it. So I changed my wow face to a normal, nodding, smiling face and thought I'll just have to put this in a book one day if I'm going to get any juice out of it. I hope when I do it doesn't seem like an extraneous name drop. 2. For our group purpose there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. I love this idea. No individual has authority. The group has authority. The group conscience is expressed through voting. If I turn up and say, I'd like a big statue of me erected in the town square, and as leader of the group, I'm going ahead with it, everyone else can say, well, that's a nice idea, Russell. You've been a good leader, arguing our case at the regional meetings and nationwide meetings. Let's see if a statue is a winner. All those in favour press the green button. All those against press red. If for some crazy reason there are more red votes than greens, I don't get my fucking statue, and that's that. This principle reminds Rumsfeld or Ed Balls or whichever risible dope in a suit trying to wangle a conservatory or new pair of shoes out of a role in public office that we, not they, are in charge, and you only get to act on the will of the people. So if the people don't want a war in Iraq, no war in Iraq. The bosses, the people, through the group conscience, have spoken. Legal asterisk. Ed Balls didn't specifically get a conservatory or a pair of shoes. For all I know, he didn't claim anything dodgy. I was joking. I happen to know that Ed Balls is in politics as a result of a powerful yearning to help others. He is a political St. Francis. He did charge his £2,000 removal van to expenses and flipped his own 3 times in 2 years. Sort of thing St. Francis might have done. 3. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. This requires a bit of translation. What it means is it don't matter what gender, sexual persuasion, colour, religion or class you are, if you want to join the group you can. I suppose on a global level there will be groups that want to define themselves through specificity and exclusion. The English Defence League or the Nation of Islam might want their own setup. I suppose we'd have to tolerate that. I mean, we can't phone up the Nation and say Bill O'Reilly wants to join up. You've got to let him in. That might be antagonistic. 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or our organisation as a whole. This tradition definitely deals with the above problem. Have a racially, religiously or sexually defined and exclusive group if you want, but you can't mess with our necessary overall objective of ecological responsibility and economic equality. 5. Each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. Our primary purpose is the preservation of our environment and the creation of a harmonious and inclusive democracy. We can likely only achieve this through small, self-determined communities that are run voluntarily and democratically. 6. A group ought never endorse, finance or lend our name to any related facility or outside enterprise lest problems of money, property and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. This prevents people trying to profit from communities designed with spirituality in mind. We're all flawed and greedy and egotistical, so we have regulations in place that acknowledge that and guide us back to the better part of our individual and communal nature, our altruism, our empathy, our creativity. 7. Every group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. This is designed to prevent top-down authority asserting itself. The group is independent and democratically run. This tradition, even the word tradition is nicer and less incendiary than the word rule, prevents swaggering capitalists and glamorous nitwits acquiring authority through financial means. 8. Our organisation should remain forever non-professional, but our service centres may employ special workers. This reminds me of Matt Stoler's no titles policy. No one can suddenly claim to be a professor of revolution or an admiral of equality. To quote myself, always the sign of a well-managed ego, those in government are administrators, those in municipal positions are servants. Our relationship to the police or traffic wardens, should the community vote for such institutions, are not subordinate, they are horizontal. 9. Our organisation as such ought never be organised, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. Remember what Adbusters said about corporations. They used to be set up to do a job, then disbanded. Then for no other reason than profit and individual advancement, they became ongoing, immortal, money-guzzling entities. This tradition prevents that. We set up a committee to build a nice juice bar or hold a World Cup, and when it's finished, it's disbanded. Ta-da, Sepp, glad you enjoyed it. You can stand for re-election in 4 years. We'll let you know. 10. Our organisation has no opinion on outside issues, hence our name ought never be drawn into public controversy. This principle ensures the autonomy of other groups. Clearly, our ideology is defined not by us wanting to be free from boozing one day at a time, but free from our addiction to a corrupt and corrosive system. We are addicted to destructive ideas. When consent is achieved on our collective agenda, we can then determine what the incontrovertibles are. Likely they are based on ecological responsibility and individual freedom. I know what I'd like, but that's probably different from your requirements. As long as we both know neither of us has a hotline to God or inherent superiority, we should be cool. 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio and films. This principle is dangerously close to being transgressed right now. You'll note that I haven't declared my affiliation because were I a member of organisations defined by these traditions, I'd have no right to. What is implicit in this principle is the obligation to make your primary focus your own conduct, not telling other people what to do. Another big challenge for me personally. I love giving advice on how to change the world. It's much harder to get on and live like a good man. How effective and beautiful to have a tradition to remind us of this. 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Here we see that the titular anonymity which defines these organisations is not solely in place to prevent sloshed old drunkards getting embarrassed by their condition, rather to emphasise that individuals are all equally valuable and equally expendable. I like this principle very much as it returns to the primary battlefield where revolutions must be waged, our own consciousness. It's not that I want to oust David Cameron or Barack Obama or Angela Merkel, it's that we must collectively overcome the structures that promote the egocentric in all of us. Me and you and David Cameron and everyone else have to individually yield to the divine within us so that collectively we can manifest a society worthy of beautiful beings. One day, David Cameron's ego might be playing up, but that'll be okay because collectively we have a system that can avert that. Another day I might get flash. That doesn't matter because we have principles in place which prevent anybody's negative nature becoming dominant. Tyranny is the deliberate removal of nuance, said the filmmaker Albert Maysles, when an institution or an individual oppresses truth to ensure that their version of reality dominates. Whether that's Philip Morris removing the nuance of the carcinogenic properties of different types of fags to perpetuate sales, or me deceptively managing information within my own relationships, or the gun lobby insisting that guns shoot peace out of them, not lead. We have a culture where principles mean nothing and personalities mean everything, and I can see why it caught on. I've done very well out of it. My personality allows me to get away with all sorts of rubbish, riding the wrong way up a one-way street on a stolen bicycle. I didn't steal it though, I bought it off a dodgy bloke. Winking at the police as I pass, years of trouble-free promiscuity, tables at restaurants, but without principles, I was freewheeling away from God. Here are some more examples of ideologies that flout the establishment's insistent jingle that their way is the only way. So, many corporations will be killed, according to Adbuster's excellent suggestion. Perhaps we should use the word cull, like people do when they want to kill something cute. Are you killing that badger? No, sir, culling it. When you've finished culling it, will it be dead? A bit, yes. So explain the difference between killing and culling? Well, it's a U. In a sort of tuneful sense that the creature is being gently lulled to death rather than killed with a hammer. And what's the hammer you're holding for? Culling. So maybe we should cull some corporations. Once we've culled them, their resources and materials can be returned to communities to run themselves. Outlined here is a suggestion for how a corporation could be structured more fairly. Employee Investment Funds, Sweden, 1970s. Every large Swedish corporation had to give its employees shares equivalent to 20% of its profits every year. Well, that's novel, the empowerment of workers within a corporate structure. Sure, it's limited, 20% isn't enough. The workers should have 100%, and there should be no hierarchical distinction between any of the workers, regardless of their costume. Title abolition will help towards that. We've begun negotiations. Good. Well done, Sweden. The shares were not owned by individuals, but were controlled by regional management boards, which were democratically accountable. Fair enough. We're not after a new elite. Collectivisation and lateral autonomy. Cool. No wonder Volvos are so safe. The boards had to use shares for social priorities and the public interest. That's good. I mean, I think huge sectors of the financial industry will be entirely dispensed with, given that the whole thing is an elaborate mathematical metaphor designed to legitimise fraud and theft. Nice to know that if any form of market did remain, there'd be no unaccountable bankers getting bonuses during an economic crisis that they caused. Viva IKEA! As the shares of the companies grew, so did the influence of the workers' management boards on corporate decision-making. Clever. The destiny of the board and workers are inextricably linked. From what we've discovered so far, this structure still seems a bit hierarchical, but at least it proposes a form of empowerment for workers which we could easily amplify. ABBA forever! Unfortunately, this scheme was never put into place due to widespread hostility from employers. Oh, right. They never actually did it. It was a hypothetical corporate revolution. Typical. The sauna-dwelling, porn-watching, suicide-committing pervs. Understandable, really. It's a method of financial reform that could never be imposed without union power and regulation that modifies the power of corporations. Bloody ironic. Even though I think this measure is too modest, look at how it would have an impact in a country like Britain on a company like Tesco. In 2014, Tesco posted profits of £3.3 billion. Under the aforementioned system, they would have to transfer £660 million to the Employee Share Trust, meaning they would still keep £2.64 billion. Well, they can't moan about that, can they? They'd still get billions in profit. Let's pause to recall that profit means surfeit money that you don't actually need after all your costs have been covered. We know that for profit to exist in one place, deficit has to exist elsewhere. So I don't think this goes nearly far enough. Nonetheless, let's look at how this modest reform would impact Britain. The Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham cost $545 million to build in 2010. You'd have more than that amount to spend every year just from one company, and they'd still get to keep 80% of their profits. Wow. That means that corporations that make huge profits with a modest amendment could be making life-saving contributions to the society they profiteer within. That seems so reasonable, fair, apposite and just. Hey, how come not one mainstream Democratic Party anywhere in the world has policies like that? Why could that be? Why aren't Labour or the Democrats or even self-declared People's Parties, they're all meant to be People's Parties by the way, like UKIP proposing gentle, effective regulation of corporations, unless they're all utterly supplicant to corporate tyranny? Ah yes, that's it. So that's one idea that in my view is a piece of pipsqueak reformism and not worth dying for, that no party in the democratic space would ever propose because it conflicts with what Chomsky outlined for us earlier as the true function of power, to protect itself and to control us. What the above example does is demonstrate another alternative to the way things are, and shatters the convenient lie that there are no alternatives. Here's another example of things being run differently. This time it's truly representative democracy. That means something worth voting for, a system that actually means the will of the people can be manifested. It's called participatory democracy. In Porto Alegre in Brazil, a city with a population of 1.3 million, 22% of whom live in shanty towns and slums where typically people aren't that well educated or affluent, large-scale participatory democracy has proven to be very successful. Since 1989, the expenditure for the whole city has been designed as an annual participatory budget so people can decide how the money is spent. That seems unfeasible. All these slum-dwelling city of gold emulating barefoot with an orange football on the beach folk are each year involved in the economics of their community. It can't be done. All right, how is it done? In March, there are micro-level discussions in preparation held all over the city. OK, so people understand that they are part of a community and can take part in its management. In April and May, assemblies are held to decide on priorities for the coming year. I see, so the first meeting is to establish priorities. Some people might want to have more regular refuse collections, others might want more community housing, others might be worried about immigration. Bring it up at the micro meeting, work it through, then take it to the assembly the following month. 48 delegates are elected from the assemblies to attend the Budget Council. So there's a representative element, but it doesn't feel as dislocated as our politics. There's a sense that you are making decisions that will affect your life. I bet if we were able to present that information interestingly, people would be as engaged by that as they are by dancing on ice. The requests of the citizens arising from the assembly meeting are handed to the mayor. Mayor? Hey, how'd he get that gig? I don't remember voting for him. The title mayor would have to go in Matt Stoler's Utopia, and the incumbent of the role be entirely beholden to the people in Dave de Grau's. Like with the revolutions we've read about, we're under no obligation to replicate their ideologies wholesale. We can democratically cultivate our world together. The Budget Council meets from September, and the delegates, councillors and administrators work through the budget, which is adopted by the mayor at the end of the year. Sounds like a lot of bureaucracy, and I bet it fucking is. That's what politics should be. Admin. No power, just clerical work, enacting the will of the people. The mayor doesn't get to make any crafty moves to help out his bank of pals or get bikes named after him. It's just graft and service. The procedure is aided by a team of coordinators who liaise with the community throughout the process. Real-life democracy where the issues that you care about are addressed. Me, I don't see immigration as a real issue. For me, an immigrant is just someone who used to be somewhere else, and the sooner we unite and organise to dismantle the structures that prevent all of us being free, the better I'll feel. You might feel differently though. You might want strict border controls like Bill O'Reilly or Nigel Farage. Now, whilst I'd argue that the only reason we even think stuff like that is because we've been given duff and manipulative information, you may not care. In a truly representative democracy, we'd be presented with the arguments, then we'd vote. If after all the pleading and exposure of actually culpable bankers and corrupt politicians, there was still a determination to blame immigrants, some crazy racist deal could be voted in. Given that we're all meant to be deeply apathetic, our refusal to vote regarded as slovenliness rather than an unwillingness to participate in a system that knowingly harbours and protects political paedophiles, the concern would be that no one would bother to take part in this new, empowering system. Well, 31,300 people took part in the process in Porto Alegre in 2002, up from 1,300 in 1989. This goes to show that participation escalates when people see that they're not wasting their time. Also, it clearly wasn't as boring as I was worried it would be. It caught on like Rubik's Cube, or if you're young, and I hope you are, loom bands. That's a huge number, positive in itself, but imagine the increased sense of community and connection. Compare this to what we're mugged off with by way of democracy. In London, 25 elected members of the GLA and the Mayor of London decide how to spend a budget of £14.6 billion. Sounds like there's a bit of wiggle room there. When this new type of democracy was implemented in Brazil, let's call it actual democracy, the majority of participants were women and poor people. Isn't that what we need in all democracy? Underrepresented groups to come to the forefront? I think our communities would greatly improve if more women and blokes that hadn't all gone to the same school got stuck into running them. What happened when they got involved in Porto Alegre? Spending on health and education rose from 13% to 40%. 98% of houses were connected to mains water and the sewage system. The number of schools increased by 4 times. That's what happens in representative democracy. People get represented instead of mad policies that allow spying, new water cannons, arms deals and the carving up of health services. Generally speaking, when empowered as a community or common mind, our common spirit, our common sense reaches conclusions that are beneficial for our community, our common unity.